afternoon, everyone. Nice to see you all. Thanks so much for coming to the Albany Pine Bush. We are so excited to be able to host this workshop. The Albany Pine Bush is a globally rare landscape. There's fewer than 20 places like the pine bush left on Earth. So all the exhibits that are here and the trails are all great ways to learn more about the Albany Pine Bush. It's what we call an inland pine barrens. So it almost kind of feels like you should be near the ocean, but we're not. So there's sand dunes and pitch pine and scrub oak. And right now, one of the probably most famous residents of the pine bush, the Karner blue butterfly, which is an endangered species, is flying. So if anybody has time after the program to look around, even just around the parking lot, you can find them tiny little blue butterflies. And with that, we're thrilled to have you both here today, and I will turn things over to Peaches.
Thank you very much. It's nice to see everyone here today. I feel like I'm in school because I taught for 40 years, and I love this whole setup. I was like, yes, I could do stations again. So I was really happy. The first question I want to ask is, has anybody written poetry in here? Great, that's great. Any grown-ups? You did? Good for you, great. Can you tell me something about poetry or what you like about poetry?
I like how the examples of writing.
Exactly. Anybody else? Even if you haven't written, can you tell me something about poetry? When we open a book, how do we know it's poetry as opposed to just a story? Can anybody tell? How it's formatted on the page. Yep, exactly. Does poetry have to have a beginning and ending, a beginning and middle and the end? Not necessarily. It's really just an expression of feelings that don't need to have any particular order. And there are so many different styles of poetry that it's impossible to remember. There are actually one-word poems, if you can believe that. Isn't that bizarre? Like there's actually a format for one-word poems, two-word poems, three-word poems, four-word poems, five-word poems, six-word poems, seven-word poems, and eight-word poems, and they all have a very different format. Well, a one-word poem is just one word, right? Can't do much with that, right? But what they do that so that everybody, no matter what level of writing or what skill of poetry you have, everybody can participate in writing poetry. So I think one of the things we're going to do today, because I know there are a lot of children here and it's nice to do arts and crafts, but because this is a poetry workshop, everything you do, everything you draw, everything you make has to include words, okay? And if you need help with your words, well, we have great adults here to help you with your words, okay? So we're going to talk a little bit about what a list poem is. And a list poem, if you probably guessed, is literally just a list. If I think of it, something in nature, somebody tell me something in nature they love. Tell me. Butterflies, I love it. So if you thought what were you going to say? Life, okay, great. Anything else? Say it again. The sound of nature? Is that what you said? Yeah, that sounds amazing, actually. So a list poem, if you took what you loved in nature, like a butterfly, sound, life, and all you did was wrote words that you felt, beautiful, colorful, floating, happy, right? Energetic, high. Some people think things are ugly in nature, so you might even want to say that, right? Slimy, right? If you're looking at a fish or a worm or something. Smelly, some things in nature. So that's a list poem if you want to do a list poem. If you want to do a more sophisticated poem, I have a format for that as well, and this will work for the adults, either a list poem or a format poem. And a format poem starts off with naming something that you love in nature, and then the first line, would you give me that piece of paper there? Yeah, the one that's written on, yeah. I think that's the one. Beautiful. So the first line would be thinking of something you love in nature, write its name, think of something that you love about it, describe it in detail. How does it make you feel? Say something loving to it. What does it say in response? Express a memory of that thing. And end with a closing statement, anyone you want. And that's a way to structure a poem that's very simple and easy for us to do, and just in case we're not familiar with writing poetry. The picture behind me I wanted to show you that's up on the screen. Well, not that one. It should be up on the screen. My friend and I, Tommy Beers, who's a painter, we love to study farmland. And so we did a study of 4 farms in Ithaca and in the surrounding areas. And he painted pictures of them, and I wrote poetry for them. And one of the things that I do is look into the picture and find characteristics or something spiritual about it, or something it makes me feel, and something I think. So I'm going to read you a couple of these poems, and you have to listen very carefully, okay? Just to see how I'm making the description. Poetry is really about imagery and description. So the more you can say that makes me picture what you're saying, that's a very important part of poetry. So the imagery of poetry is very important. And so I'm going to read this to you. These are the images that I captured. And remember, they're all about farmland. And there are books over there if you want to take a closer look at the picture once we get started. So this was a picture of a tractor and a farm that my friend painted. And how this started off is he used to post his paintings on Facebook. And I once said to him, that painting needs a poem. And he said, try it. And so I started writing poetry for all his paintings, and we realized that we had enough paintings to put a book together. And so this was the first opportunity he had to publish his watercolors. So it was a really exciting time for us. I had published one other book before, which is also on the table if you want to take a look at it. So I will read this poem called Blue Tractor. The wearing of time sits on the face of all things, in lines and creases, and in light layers of that which have come and gone. Old barns lean against moodless backgrounds of gray and shade old tractors that wait to be warmed up and put to work. Dissembled pieces of time show themselves as tired tires, oxidized metals, bent like elbows, embedded in a mound of dirt. A fractured farm side softly weeps. All things fatigue and rest a little more each year, but right now they are not yet done. The tenaciousness and determination of those who would work the land will uplift the worn and weary, and a day of working the farm will find its way into another year. So that's what I wrote for this particular painting. And I'll read you one more. This painting is called An Artist's View. My eyes make their way along the patterns of this piece of land. My soul follows. My heart is called into this portrait of beauty. I stand within it, leaning against the outer rim of the frame. The muddled tracks create a road, a groove cut into existence by the workings of an old tractor modestly sat on the side of the road in the distance ahead. Here in the stillness of this special place, there is movement. Can you see it? The trees bow to one another, in love with who they are. Good day, Your Majesty. Good day, Your Majesty. The tire tracks carry us, curve us around the extremities of the evergreens and into all we can imagine about what lies beyond the land. The matted sky whispers to us, calling us to think and dream, and perhaps take a walk further into the world, to take a walk along the movement of all that is portrayed here. Perhaps we'll take a stroll through the mind of the artist along the edges of what an artist views. So that was that poem. Did anyone notice how I gave life to a lot of the things that are not really life, right? Did anybody notice that? Yeah, like they were speaking, that's exactly right. Anybody else notice something like that in that poem? Go ahead, hon. Yes, exactly, exactly. That's the beauty of poetry, that when you write poetry, you can give life to anything. So what we create here, whether you're talking about a leaf or a fish or a rock or anything else, you can give life to that thing and pretend it's speaking to you or pretend you hear what it's feeling. You know, there's a tree called a weeping willow. Do you know that tree? It's such a beautiful poetic name for a tree, right? And because of the way the leaves are kind of hanging down, you can imagine like the tears of something falling, right? So it's such a perfect poetic name for something in nature. So as you're writing and thinking and drawing and painting, I want you to keep creating words in your head, which is exactly the way poetry comes to me. It took me 2 hours to get here, and it's a beautiful drive, actually, from Ithaca to here. A lot of amazing roads and trees and land, and the smell of cows every now and then. And so as I was driving along, I was actually recreating poetry and thinking, okay, I'm going to use that line in the next poem. I'm going to use that tree. I'm going to use that barn. I'm going to use that old fence. I'm going to use all those things in the next book of poetry that I write. And so I want you to start thinking like that. Just put yourself out there in nature, whether you're by a river or by the ocean or standing on the top of a mountain. It could be any season. It could be snowy. It could be anything you want. And I want you to give life to everything. So I made some books for people to draw in, and I want you to draw a picture or color a picture of something, and your parents will help you if you need to. And then we're going to write something about those things, and I'll come around and I'll help you do that. On one of the tables, there are rocks that you can paint. And I want you to think of, once you paint your rock with these paint markers, a couple of words that you want to put on the rock afterwards. And we'll make them highlighted on the rock for you, okay? And so we're going to start off with those activities, and then whatever we write, we are going to read at the end. That's part of what we do in a writing workshop. So I want you to really think hard about what you want to express, and I'm sure that it'll all be beautiful, and so we can get started right now, okay? And if you need help, I will come around and help you. You could sit at this table if you want to do your book. I think you have,
Will we rotate stations?
we can rotate stations. I think we have enough. You brought glue sticks?
I have blue sticks.
Yeah, so that table with the pictures needs glue sticks.
Okay.
Okay? And so we'll start off there. Excellent.
Silence.
So I want to leave, we're almost finished, but I want to leave by somebody saying something nice to somebody else. Can you turn around to the person next to you and say something nice to them? Great. And will you say something back to her that's nice? Did everybody do that? Violet, you could turn to me and say something nice? I love meeting you.
I like the way you do poetry.
Thank you, I appreciate that. And I'm saying something nice. Mom and Dad, did you say something nice to one another? They're like, we're not used to that. That's great. And I wanted to say thank you for coming. I loved meeting each and every one of you. You all have special energy, and your work was beautiful, and your friendliness was touching, and thank you for being here. And I hope we meet again sometime. All right. Thank you. And for the families at home, are they there? Thank you for being with us. I hope we meet in person sometime, and thank you for participating. Let's give them a hand, too. Thank you.
I'm on TV.
You're on TV, I love it.